Have you ever felt lost, even though you're trying to do everything right, like you're constantly searching for answers, but everything around you just seems confusing? Maybe you are facing difficult decisions, conflicts in relationships, financial doubts, or simply that feeling that you are walking without direction. The truth is that living automatically without wisdom is expensive. And the Bible, yes, that book that many see as distant, holds deep secrets for overcoming these daily dilemmas. Today I'm going to show you 30 powerful lessons from the book of Proverbs, ancient principles that still work. But I'm not talking about pretty phrases or generic advice. I'm talking about practical wisdom, which you can apply today and start to see real changes in the way you think, act, and decide. If you want to live with more clarity, peace, and security in your choices, stay with me until the end of this video, because each teaching you will hear here has the power to align your mind with divine wisdom and completely transform your journey. Now, if you are truly committed to this new time, if you want to live a life guided by wisdom and purpose, comment below, "I choose to live wisely," and take the opportunity to tell me where you are watching from, so we can celebrate together how far this message is reaching. Oh, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content that could change the course of your life. Have you ever noticed how we often make decisions based on haste, emotion, or the opinion of others, and only then do we reap the consequences? It's as if we are building our lives on quicksand. The truth is that many live like this, guided more by what they feel or hear than by a solid foundation. But the Word of God shows us that there is a better way. And this path begins with a choice: seek wisdom. We are not talking about common wisdom, that which only comes with study, experience, or age. The wisdom that Proverbs speaks of is different. It comes from above. It's divine, spiritual. And according to the Bible, it is more valuable than pure gold. Because while gold may run out, wisdom remains and sustains. The book of Proverbs teaches us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This means that true wisdom begins when we recognize that there is someone above us, a sovereign God who knows the end from the beginning and wants to guide us every step of the way. When we give him our heart and our decisions, we open the way to see more clearly, act more prudently, and live with more purpose. Wise people are not those who have all the answers, but those who know where to look for guidance. They do not go through life relying only on their own logic, but allow themselves to be instructed by eternal principles. Therefore, Proverbs repeats the invitation several times. "My son, hear my words, keep my commandments, incline your ears to wisdom, do not abandon instruction." It is a call to turn our ears to the voice of truth, even when everything around us pushes us otherwise. We live in a world full of voices, social networks, human advice, fads, opinions. But biblical wisdom invites us to inner silence, to discernment, to return to the safe source. And perhaps you are experiencing exactly this conflict right now. Trying to understand why things don't move forward, why your decisions don't seem to bear fruit, why there is a void even after so much effort. Perhaps this foundation is missing: wisdom, a firm foundation to build solid choices and a stable life. Imagine a house built with beauty on the outside, but without a foundation. Over time, cracks appear. That's how it is with the lives of those who ignore wisdom. No matter how much you have good intentions, sooner or later the winds blow, and what was not established falls. But there is hope, because God Himself offers this wisdom to those who sincerely seek it. If you cry out for understanding and lift up your voice in understanding, then you will understand the fear of the Lord, and you will find the knowledge of God. This promise is in Proverbs 2. In other words, He does not hide His wisdom from us. On the contrary, He wants to reveal it, guide us through it, and make us live with discernment. You no longer have to stumble in the dark. You no longer need to depend on guesswork or other people's approval. God invites you to live differently, wisely, with vision, with direction. And that doesn't mean that everything will be perfect or easy, but rather that there will be meaning, peace, clarity. Even on difficult days, you will know where you are standing, and that makes all the difference. Now stop for a moment and reflect. In what area of your life have you been making decisions without consulting God's wisdom? What part of your journey feels fragile due to a lack of foundation? Maybe it's in your work, in your relationships, in your finances, or even in the way you deal with your own thoughts. This is the ideal time to adjust the bases, to start walking not by impulse, but by instruction. And this is only possible when we choose to open ourselves to the wisdom that comes from above. A wisdom that illuminates, corrects, directs, and transforms. Life doesn't have to be a constant trial and error. With wisdom, you can avoid many stumbles before you even fall. You can anticipate what many only learn after being injured. And you can build a path of peace, balance, and firmness. While so many follow the more popular routes, those who choose wisdom walk more discreet but safe trails. Not because they are smarter, but because they decided to trust something bigger than themselves. They decided to listen. They decided to learn. They decided to fear the Lord. And this decision changes everything. When we understand that wisdom is the foundation, the need to put it into practice arises. Because it's not enough to know what's right. You have to choose. And this is precisely where many stumble. Knowing which path to follow and actually walking it are two different things. And Proverbs confronts us with this truth all the time. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end leads to death. This well-known and so ignored phrase reminds us of something crucial. Not everything that seems right actually is. And this is where the power of discernment comes in. Many decisions we make based solely on appearance, emotion, or haste turn out to be traps in disguise. And when we see it, we are too far gone to easily return. How many times has someone gotten into a relationship just because it seemed good at first, but then discovered it was toxic and destructive? How many people changed careers or made large investments out of excitement and ended up wasting time, money, and peace? Proverbs warns us, be careful with what it looks like. Examine, reflect, pray, discern. Wisdom teaches us to ask questions before acting, looking beyond the now. Consider the consequences before making definitive decisions. And this does not mean living in fear or insecurity, but with spiritual responsibility. Because every choice carries seeds, and what we sow today, sooner or later, will become tomorrow's harvest. We often look for shortcuts to alleviate immediate pressures. But the Word shows us that the path of wisdom is not always the fastest, nor the easiest, but it is the safest. He is the one who builds the future. It is the narrow path that few choose, but that leads to a full and stable life. Proverbs speaks of a fool as someone who keeps repeating his mistakes, who gets angry easily, who speaks without thinking, who acts on impulse. But he also describes the wise man as someone who considers his steps, who listens to advice, who fears the Lord before acting. The difference between the two is in the way they choose. And here it's worth a personal reflection. What kind of choices have you been making lately? How many of them were guided by prayer, understanding, and a sincere search for God's will? And how many were motivated by haste, fear, or comparison? Many decisions that are not wrong, but premature, end up generating difficult consequences. And others, because they seem too good to be true, mask traps that only reveal themselves later on. Wisdom frees us from this. It acts like a lighthouse in the fog, revealing what natural eyes cannot see. One of the great benefits of walking wisely is precisely that, anticipating mistakes. Having spiritual sensitivity to notice when something is out of alignment, even if it seems perfect on the outside. It's that subtle feeling that something isn't right. And it's at this point that many ignore the signs and move forward and then regret it. Therefore, Proverbs encourages us to seek understanding as if searching for hidden treasure. Because right decisions are not found on the surface. They demand diving, attention, delivery. Wisdom also teaches us about the right time for everything. Not every open door is for now. Not every response needs to be immediate. Not every yes is a blessing. There are decisions that need to mature in prayer, and there are times when waiting is wiser than acting. Those who act wisely learn to identify what is an opportunity and what is a distraction. Learn to say no even when everyone expects yes. Learn to silence the voice of anxiety to hear the voice of the Spirit. And more than that, those who choose wisely attract stability. You may not see results immediately, but over time, the fruits appear. Marriage strengthens, financial life balances out, inner peace increases, connections become healthier. All because there was direction, not just reaction. Today, you may be faced with an important choice. Maybe the path that seems right is seducing you with quick promises, superficial gloss, easy solutions. But the question that needs to echo within you is this path wise? Does this step honor God? Does this choice reflect who you want to become? Because in the end, each decision builds a destiny, and God doesn't leave us alone to decide. He offers us wisdom, like a compass that points north even in the midst of storms. Perhaps you are now reaping the effects of choices made on impulse. Don't blame yourself, but don't stay stuck in that either. You can start over wisely. You can align your steps with God's will from today. You can do it differently, and when you choose wisely, life begins to change. Because wisdom leads you along paths that human effort alone would never achieve. If every decision shapes our future, few areas reveal this as clearly as finance. And this is where Proverbs becomes an even more precious guide, because it speaks firmly and clearly about money, work, diligence, and generosity. Not with magical formulas, but with eternal principles, those that, when applied, generate stability, growth, and peace. In a world where so many live on appearances, buying what they don't need to impress those who don't even notice, wisdom invites us to a more aligned life, more coherent, more free. And Proverbs isn't afraid to be blunt. The lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent is satisfied. It is a strong reminder that God's blessing manifests itself through responsibility, not accommodation. The Bible does not condemn prosperity. On the contrary, it teaches how to prosper in a fair, honest, and lasting way. But it makes it clear that wealth without wisdom is a trap. The goods that are easily gained, these diminish, but that which adds to the strength of labor will increase. In other words, solid growth requires constancy, discipline, patience. And maybe you're tired of chasing quick solutions, of trying something new every week, of being frustrated by promises that never come true. But the truth is, if you align your financial attitudes with the principles of Proverbs, your path can change. And it won't be by luck, it will be by wisdom. Wisdom teaches us, for example, to escape debts like someone escaping a trap. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Getting into debt without wisdom imprisons you, take away your sleep, affects self-esteem, and it often steals the shine of faith because the mind starts to revolve only around bills, demands, and fear of tomorrow. But Proverbs also points out the way out. Live prudently, spend less than you earn, plan the future, separate what belongs to the Lord, bless those in need, be diligent at work, even when no one is watching. Because the secret is not just how much you earn, but how you manage it. Whoever is faithful in little will be placed over much. This is also wisdom. And when you understand that every dollar that passes through your hand is a seed, you start to act with more purpose, because good seeds, when well planted, bear fruit, but wasted seed becomes empty land. And there is something even deeper. Proverbs reminds us that generosity is part of prosperity. The generous soul will prosper, and he who listens will also be answered. The logic of the kingdom is inverse. The more you bless, the more you are blessed. The more you share, the more you have. Because God honors hearts that do not attach themselves to money as an end, but as a means of serving and transforming lives. Wisdom is also recognizing the signs of financial pride, that subtle desire to show off, to appear successful in the eyes of others, even if inside there is scarcity. The word warns, better is a little with justice than great income with injustice. In other words, it's not about having a lot, but about having peace. It is important to remember that financial difficulties do not always come from a lack of effort. Often, it comes from the absence of strategy, vision, internal breaks. How many work hard but don't see the fruit? Perhaps because we lack the wisdom to identify where the leaks, the excesses, the habits that slowly erode are. And it is at this point that many get tired. They think nothing will change, but Proverbs insists, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, look at its ways and be wise. Watch, learn from the discipline of nature with the constancy of those who work in anonymity and harvest without fuss." Wisdom also protects us from greed, to seek riches at any cost. Don't get tired to get rich, give in to your own wisdom. Because money earned without purpose empties the soul, and there are many who achieved numbers, but lost their peace, their home, their faith. True wealth, according to Proverbs, is having what is necessary with contentment, conscience, and faith. Now pause and think, how have you been dealing with your finances? Have you been intentional with each choice, or have you acted on impulse? Have you been saving a little, or are you counting the days until your salary drops? Have you honored God with what you earn, or have you lost yourself in the pressures of consumption? The good news is that it's never too late to start over wisely. Just one decision, a route adjustment, a new habit, and you will realize that when you align your steps with biblical principles, everything begins to take on a new order. Because God does not want to see you trapped in cycles of scarcity, but free to manage with balance, generosity, and honor. When your heart is at peace and your finances are organized, a new challenge arises, relationships. And it is in this delicate terrain of human connections that the wisdom of Proverbs proves to be even more necessary. Because no matter how much you organize your inner life, one misplaced word, bad company, or a thoughtless reaction can ruin everything. That's why the book of Proverbs dedicates so many verses to how we communicate, who we relate to, and how we respond to everyday conflicts. He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens his lips widely comes to ruin. This is a harsh but liberating truth. How many times on impulse have we hurt someone? How many times have words thrown in a moment of anger left deep marks? Proverbs doesn't just tell us to talk less, it invites us to think before we speak, despite what we say, using the tongue as an instrument of healing and not destruction. Wisdom in words is not about cowardly silence, but about conscious communication. It's knowing that not everything needs to be said, that there is a time to remain silent, a time to listen, a time to advise with gentleness. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. This is a powerful key to transforming environments. Tone changes everything. Imagine how many marriages would be saved if spouses understood the value of a soft response. How many homes would have more harmony if parents learned to instruct with patience and children to listen with humility? How many friendships would have been lost due to a hasty speech? But it's not just words that require wisdom, the bonds too. He who walks with the wise will be wise, but the companion of fools will suffer affliction. It is impossible to grow in wisdom if we are surrounded by people who mock it. Proverbs warn us about toxic friendships, wrong advice, and dangerous influences. It is not about judging, but about discerning. There are people who, although they seem like friends, subtly divert us from our purpose. There are conversations that seem harmless, but contaminate the spirit. And there are ties that keep us away from God, even if they are packed with affection. Wisdom is realizing this before it is too late. And maybe you're stuck in a cycle of relationships that only suck, that don't build, that keep you stuck in the past or in stagnation. Maybe you're trying to be a light in an environment where everyone prefers darkness. And wisdom invites you to evaluate. To what extent is this shaping you more than you are influencing it? There are times when the wisest choice is to walk away, not for pride, but for preservation, because peace is also protection. And Proverbs says that a dry morsel with tranquility is better than a feast with strife. There are bonds that cost our emotional health, and wisdom gives us the freedom to say, "This is not good for me." But there are also links that we need to restore, and wisdom shows us how. With forgiveness, with humility, with listening, with reconciliation, because there is no healthy relationship without truth and empathy, and the Bible teaches us that reconciliation often requires more courage than confrontation. Wisdom is also revealed in the way we deal with criticism and offenses. A fool shows all his anger, but a wise man quickly appeases it. This doesn't mean ignoring what hurts, but choosing how to react. Not every affront deserves a response. Not every provocation needs a stage. There is strength in self-control. There is power in silence. Have you ever noticed that the most fragile relationships often fall apart over small things? A broken word, an unresolved misunderstanding, a misinterpreted gesture, and many times a sincere request for forgiveness would have avoided a distance that now seems irreversible. Wisdom, in this context, does not make us perfect, but conscious. It trains us to act maturely, even when we are hurt, to choose peace over dispute, to build up with what we say and not destroy. Because in the end, wisdom transforms the way we love, the way we correct, the way we live together. And this doesn't just apply to major conflicts, valid for everyday life, for the way you respond to your spouse, for how you treat co-workers, for patience with your children, for respect for those who think differently. It is in small attitudes that wisdom reveals itself or hides itself. Now look honestly at your relationships. Which one have you been talking too much about and listening too little to? In which bond do you feel you need to apply more wisdom and less reactivity? Which friendship needs to be rethought? Which bond needs to be healed? Because wisdom is not limited to knowing, it transforms being. It tunes tone, reduces noise, and strengthens bridges. And when applied to relationships, it is like a gentle oil that restores what was rusty, a balm that heals, a path that reconnects. If you are committed to cultivating healthier relationships with more wisdom, empathy, and maturity, comment now below, "I choose to respond wisely." We at the Codes of the Kingdom channel will leave a like on your comment as a sign that we are with you on this journey, and we will follow your progress with faith and prayer. Because what comes next could be exactly what you've been missing for you to find peace where there is conflict today. Keep watching, because the next minute can completely change the way you react, feel, and build your bonds. It's amazing how often we seek wisdom to deal with others, but neglect mastery over ourselves. After understanding the importance of wisdom in relationships, we are faced with something even more intimate, how we deal with our own emotions. Because before responding to others, we need to know what is pulsing inside us. Before trying to appease a conflict, it is necessary to appease the soul. Proverbs says, "He who rules his spirit is better than he who takes over a city." This is more than a metaphor. It is an invitation to true strength, self-mastery. And perhaps this is the quietest and hardest battle you face. The fight against the anger that wants to explode, the sadness that wants to paralyze you, the anxiety that insists on speeding up your thoughts, the pride that screams for reason, and the fear that tries to stop you from moving forward. Mastering yourself is a sign of spiritual maturity, and we're not talking about repressing emotions or pretending you don't feel them, but rather not being enslaved by them. It's like being in the middle of a storm and still holding the helm steady. God's wisdom doesn't take away your emotions. It teaches you how to manage them. Have you ever noticed how a small trigger can change the entire course of a day? A crossed word, a crooked look, a frustrated expectation, and suddenly the explosion comes. Irritation takes over. Anxiety dominates. And what could be just a moment turns into internal chaos that affects everything around. This is why Proverbs insists so much on the importance of being slow to anger. Because those who are quick to explode are fragile inside. And emotional fragility, when left untreated, makes us hostage to circumstances and reactions. A heart dominated by unstable emotions is like a city without walls. Vulnerable, exposed, defenseless. Wisdom invites us to cultivate inner silence, pausing before responding, to reflect before acting, praying before deciding. This break, no matter how small, can save relationships, preserve your peace, and even prevent irreversible damage. It is in this space between stimulus and reaction that wisdom lives, and that is where the Holy Spirit wants to act. But self-control is not achieved overnight. It is the fruit of practice, vigilance, and constant surrender. It's not about willpower, but about dependence on God. It is recognizing that by ourselves we are limited, but with Him we can be shaped from the inside out. And there is a powerful secret here. When you learn to manage your emotions, you change the environment around you. Because people react more to your spirit than to your words. A serene heart calms arguments. A peaceful presence is contagious. A gentle look disarms the offense. This is the fruit of wisdom. How many times have you regretted saying what you shouldn't have? Because I acted on impulse? Because you let fear or anger make decisions for you. Wisdom calls you to learn from these moments, not to condemn yourself for them. Every mistake can be a seed of transformation if it is handed over to God with humility. And it's not just anger that needs to be tamed. Self-comparison, insecurity, the desire to control everything, resentment, rush, all these feelings, if not managed, wear us down inside and keep us away from what is essential. Wisdom filters, consider, slow down. She teaches you that not every battle needs to be fought, that many wars are won in silence, that you don't need to prove anything to anyone, that your peace is worth more than being right, that responding at the right time, in the right way, can be more impactful than reacting in the heat of the moment. There is beauty in balance, strength in meekness, victory in own control. And all of this is built with daily choices, small but constant choices, choices that no one sees, but that God honors. Because He is more interested in your inner self than your outer performance. Now think, what emotion has been leading your life lately? The frustration, the fear, the need for control, or perhaps the feeling that you need to defend yourself all the time. Maybe you are tired for exactly that reason, for living in a state of alert without rest in your soul. But there is a better way, the path of wisdom that guides feelings and is not guided by them. A path where you can feel everything but not get lost in anything. Where you recognize the pains but don't allow them to define you. Where you learn that self-control is not coldness, it is maturity. It's knowing who you are in God, and when you walk like this, your steps become firm, your sweetest words, your lighter presence, your life more stable, because those who let themselves be guided by wisdom from above find balance even in the midst of chaos. And this balance doesn't just bless you, it heals those around you. There is a silent but powerful difference between reputation and character. Reputation is what others think about you. Character is what God sees when no one is looking. And Proverbs deals with this seriously. He is not just interested in what we appear to be, but in the truth of who we are when the stage is empty and the lights go out. The upright man walks in his integrity. Blessed will be his children after him. There is a legacy that comes from character, an invisible heritage that is transmitted not with words but with example. And this is one of the greatest expressions of wisdom, living with integrity, even if it costs you, choosing the right one even when the wrong one seems easier. Honor God in secret, when no one demands, or observes. The fear of the Lord, so emphasized in Proverbs, is not fear of punishment, but reverence for a father. It is living with the awareness that everything we do, think and decide is seen by the one who loves us and expects from us a heart aligned with his. Not out of imposition, but out of gratitude, not out of obligation, but out of surrender. Integrity is not perfection, but it's constancy. It's about being the same in public and in private. It means acting fairly even when no one can prove otherwise. It's returning the wrong change. It's fulfilling a promise that no one remembers anymore. It's not corrupting yourself for praise, money, or convenience. And this is only possible when the fear of the Lord is rooted in the heart. How many times have you been tempted to take the shortcut, bending principles for convenience? Accepting a proposal that seemed advantageous but hurt values? These temptations are not uncommon. They are tests. Moments when God observes not only our choice, but the reason behind it. Because man sees appearance, but the Lord sees the heart. And this honest heart is not born from human formulas. It is built in the presence of God, in intimacy with the Word, in the daily confrontation between I want and God wants, between the desire to please people and the decision to please the Creator, and often that means going against the grain. Proverbs says, "The wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are his delight." What an honor it is to be considered God's delight. What a privilege it is to know that he rejoices in silent choices, in renunciations that no one sees, in faithfulness that only heaven recognizes. It is common to see people giving up their integrity in the name of success. But Proverbs states, "Better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than one who is perverse in his lips and a fool." In other words, a clean heart is worth more than a full account obtained through crooked paths. Because true success is not what is achieved in a hurry, but what is sustained with truth. This is one of the most precious lessons of wisdom. Not everything that works is right. Not every open door was opened wide by God. Not every applause is confirmation from heaven, and that's why we need integrity as a foundation, because it prevents us from advancing along routes that compromise our purpose. Have you ever felt pressured to remain silent in the face of something wrong so as not to miss an opportunity? Have you ever had to pretend to be okay with what hurt you just to maintain an appearance? Have you ever hidden your faith for fear of rejection? Wisdom invites you to be whole, not to divide your soul between what you feel and what you show, between what you believe and what you practice. The righteous walk firmly because there is no guilt chasing them. There are no masks to support. There are no contradictions to hide. And this brings a powerful freedom to sleep in peace, to live in truth, to remain firm even when the winds blow. The fear of the Lord is like a guard for the heart. He protects us from hasty decisions, from mistaken alliances, from dark paths. He reminds us that we are not alone, even in the silence, that there are attentive eyes, not to condemn, but to guide. that there is a God who cares about motivation, not just the result. And when you choose to live like this, with integrity, God's favor accompanies you. You don't need to manipulate, force, beg. You just need to stay faithful, because God honors those who honor Him. He opens the right doors at the right time. He sustains where no one else sustains. He exalts with purpose, not vanity. Now think, is there any area of your life where you have traded your integrity? Any choice that seems small, but that you know is out of line with what God has taught you? Maybe it's a hidden conversation, a convenient omission, a loophole that you've already justified so many times that it seems harmless. But the Holy Spirit calls you to return today, lining up, cleaning, not to shame you, but to restore you. Because wisdom is crying out in the streets, and it is calling you back to the center of God's will, a place of peace, firmness, and purpose. Wisdom is not an abstract concept. It turns into visible fruit. When we choose to apply it, even in the simplest details, we reap the results. Peace in the heart, stability in decisions, balance in finances, healthy relationships, and a clear purpose in our journey. And Proverbs makes this very clear. The path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until it is a perfect day. The word does not promise the absence of problems, but it guarantees clarity in the midst of darkness. Wisdom is seeing what many ignore. It's building with patience while others run in a hurry. It is making decisions that, in the eyes of the world, seem foolish, but in the eyes of God, they are seeds of abundant harvests. Proverbs shows us that living wisely is a daily choice. It's not something you acquire all at once. It's cultivated with practice, humility, and spiritual sensitivity. And most powerfully, this wisdom is not reserved for intellectuals or religious leaders. It is available to all who sincerely seek, who decide to listen more, learn more, and submit more to God's direction. Throughout this journey, we saw how wisdom manifests itself in different areas. We saw that it begins in the fear of the Lord, reveals itself in decisions, expands in finances, transforms relationships, dominates emotions, and sustains integrity. Every area of your life can be impacted if you allow God's wisdom to be your guide. And now, looking at everything that has been shared, it is time to act, of not just absorbing, but applying. For whoever hears wisdom and practices, it is likened to a man who built his house on the rock. The storms came, but the house remained standing. The world needs people like this, firm, Claras, brave, guided not by impulses, but by principles. So if you want to be part of this group of people who not only listen, but put it into practice, leave it now in the comments. I choose to live guided by the wisdom of God. This sentence is not just an answer. It is a public commitment. And we, from the channel Kingdom Codes, we will leave a special like on your comment as a way of recognizing that you are among those who rise up to live differently. And more, if you feel like you were reached by this video, if something stirred your conscience and awakened a new perspective, don't leave without subscribing to the channel. This could be the first of many steps towards the life God wants for you. Then click sign up now and join a community of people who are not content with the shallow, who seek the deep, the eternal, the true, and pay attention. What follows might be just what you need to consolidate everything you've heard so far. 2 videos will appear on your screen. Don't ignore it. Each of them is like a continuation of this conversation. They were handpicked so that you can continue on this journey with even more revelations and divine directions. Watch them both. The next click could be the missing key to your complete awakening. Now tell me, what was the code that turned the key inside you? Comment below. We want to know which part spoke most to your heart. And if this video reached you, share with as many people as possible. Be generous. Just as you were blessed with this content, bless other lives too. You are not like most. You didn't come here by chance. God is awakening in you a new consciousness, a new way of living, and those who move wisely are the ones who truly transform the world.